Our speaker today is Anandi Geroy, who will speak on the avatars of Vishnu. Anandi will be familiar to many of us by now. And for those of you who don't know, she lived in India for 7 years, studying dance, percussion, language, culture, and religion. Has taught theater and dance in India, San Francisco, and Taos, and has adapted a number of folk tales from across the world for the stage. She enjoys working with children, teaching dance, theater, and folk arts. And she's just an amazing being. We just appreciate you so hugely. So please welcome Anandi. Yeah, do that one.
Good morning. Thank you guys. It's such a pleasure to be here always. Yeah, I'm loving the spring and I feel so nice in the garden. It's just great putting in the garden at our school too, at TISA. It's been really fun. So we're going to talk about some of the avatars of Vishnu today. We started on that a little bit last time, talking about Vishnu and how his role as the preserver lends itself to these periodic incarnations on the planet to right the balance of right and wrong, to teach important lessons to humanity and the asuras. It's interesting, a lot of the stories from Hindu mythologies, from the Puranas, from the stories that I tell, you've got these two sets of beings, the devas and the asuras. And I was telling a story to the kids the other day, and often asura is translated as demon, but I think there are these sort of classes of beings. The gods aren't necessarily what you think of as like omniscient, omnipresent beings. They're more like sort of the gods of Greek mythology, which have a lot of very human qualities and different attributes, and the demons as well. They're sort of superhuman beings and maybe exemplify some of the qualities that are like follies for us. But in these stories, that's kind of how those two classes of beings play out. They're sort of the more positive qualities that we want to cultivate are sort of embodied by the devas, but they aren't purely sort of divine beings that have ultimate power. Often they're resorting to higher beings to help them. So I'm wondering, I wish there were other words and then gods and demons to sort of describe them.
What about like tricksters, like like the coyote sort of thing in the native tradition?
Yeah, they could be called tricksters. I mean, they can be a little more maleficent than a trickster sometimes. Yeah. Well, let's hear some stories. I can help with some names for the future. So I'm going to talk about, we talked last time about the first avatar, which was Matsya, the fish avatar. The second one is Kuruman, the tortoise, and we talked about that previously, so I'm not going to tell the tortoise story today. The third one and the fourth are related. They are about two demon brothers and how they wreaked havoc on Earth. The third avatar is Varaha, the boar. And so these two stories start long ago in the hermitage of the sage Kashyapa and his wife Diti. And once upon a time, she wished to have a child, and so she approached her husband. But at that moment, it was an inauspicious time to conceive a child because it was Sandhya, which is the evening time. And the evening time is both an auspicious and sort of an inauspicious time. It's the time in between, so where day and night are mixed, and a lot of kind of the beings that are these spirits that can kind of go either way sort of come and start to gain in power at that time as the night is coming on. It's a time in the Hindu world where lights are offered, where we offer, like here in the temple, the evening arti, which is waving lamps to the deity. And in most Hindu homes, you offer a lamp and either put it outside or on the doorstep after worshiping your family gods and prayer and saying some prayers for the evening time. It's sort of like an auspicious time of peacefulness, but it also reminds us of endings and death. And so it's it's both an expansive but kind of an eerie time. So that was the moment that she chose to approach her husband and say, let's conceive a child. And he said, well, I'm in the middle of I'm getting ready for my evening prayers. It's not really a good time. And plus, Rahu, well, I don't know if you remember, Rahu is actually a demon who figures in the story of the tortoise. He's the one who eclipses the sun and the moon of the disembodied head, who's actually like a planet in Vedic astrology that's an unseen planet that has a malefic influence on the heavens. So it was a period in which Rahu was having an influence. So it was really not a good time to conceive, but she was adamant, clouded by those feelings that we all have from time to time, that we need to have our sensual desire fulfilled. And so her sage husband sort of meditated, and he understood through his intuition that this was all ordained, and so he agreed. So she conceived a child. In fact, she conceived two twins, not twins, just two, I guess twins, yeah. They weren't identical. They are fraternal. So she conceived two boys. And afterwards, she came to her husband and said, wow, I'm feeling really ashamed for like forcing myself on you at that inauspicious moment. Please don't let some of these evil spirit forces that were around at that time hurt the children I'm carrying in my womb. And he said, well, it really wasn't the right time. So those sons are not going to be a great influence on the earth. But because you are contrite and you kind of realize the error of your ways, eventually, after they've terrorized the earth, they'll have the boon of being killed by Lord Vishnu himself. And so for asuras or demonic beings, that's the greatest thing that can happen to them is when they finally meet their demise. It's at the hands of Vishnu. And so in that way, they're liberated. So she said, okay, I guess that's all right. So she knows that these two sons are not going to be great for the earth. And because her son her husband is like, they're both incredibly powerful spiritual beings, the mother and father. So they have a lot of energy that they've put into these sons. But she delays their birth kind of as long as she can. She kind of holds on to them as long as she can. And eventually their light growing in her womb starts to eclipse the light on the earth. And things become darker, and there are these sort of bad portents, and all the devas, which are the gods, they go to Brahma and say, Brahma, what's going on? And we feel like things are out of sorts, things are off, the light in the world is slowly dimming, and things aren't looking good. What's happening? We feel a sense of foreboding. And Brahma said, well, yeah, there is something bad coming. There's these two beings that are going to be born on the earth, and they're going to cause a lot of trouble. And the gods say, what can we do? How is this happening? How can we save ourselves? And Brahma said, well, this has all been preordained. Let me tell you the backstory. So once upon a time, before this once upon a time, up in Vaikuntha, which is the heaven of Lord Vishnu, in a very heavenly realm, which is supposed to be an incredibly beautiful place with all of these gardens, and it's just eternal spring, and there are ever blooming flowers and bees roaming around sipping nectar, and it smells amazing, the smell of incense and flowers floating through the air. Up in Vaikuntha, there are two guards who guard the seventh gate, the final gate, until you reach the inner sanctum where Vishnu and his consort Lakshmi ever reside. So all the great enlightened beings of the world who are devotees of Vishnu are always trying to reach him and reach Vaikuntha and have a vision of him and Lakshmi as the fulfillment of their tapas, which is a spiritual sadhana they practice on this earth. So there's these four brothers who are very holy sages, and they've made it up to Vaikuntha, and they're going to see Vishnu, and they have lived for many lifetimes, letting go of everything. They don't have any worldly possessions. They roam wherever they like. They're very free. And they get there, and they are so excited because they're just about to go through the seventh gate, and they see these two guards, Jaya and Vijaya. And they are these beautiful, resplendent youths, and they're wearing beautiful jewelry and gardens of never fading flowers covered with bees sipping nectar, and it's just this heavenly picture. And they say, the four brothers say, let us in, we're here to see Vishnu. And the two guards say, well, he's sleeping right now, you can't go in. And the four brothers are shocked and say, wait a minute. we've come all this way. We've spent many lifetimes trying to reach here. Please let us in. We don't deserve this sort of treatment. And the guards say, what do you think Vishnu has nothing to do but just wait around for people like you? Just go away, go back where you came from. You can't come in. Well, the four brothers were very offended. They were used to being able to roam wherever they liked. They let go of everything, and they weren't used to having fetters or hindrance in their way. So they cursed the two guards and said, because you treated us so unfairly, we don't deserve this at all. You guys are going to be cursed to be born down in those realms where these four forces will oppress you: anger, greed, and lust and desire. Those four desires for material objects. Those four forces you're going to be born in the place where your mind will be clouded by those four things. And they said, oh no, that's a terrible fate. We don't want to be born there in that place. Please help us. And Vishnu himself heard what was going on. He came and gave a vision to the four brothers and said, you're right to curse them. They treated you unfairly, and you should, this curse was right. And the four brothers said, I'm sorry, you do whatever you want. You can curse us if you want. We just came to see you. She said, no, it's right. But please, when they're done serving their sentence down there, just let them come back to me eventually. And the two guards say, please also let us not be have our mind clouded by some infatuation that makes us forget Vishnu while we're down there. And the four brothers say, whatever you want to happen, Vishnu, it's all your will. And he said, no, they need some kind of punishment for this action that they did, some kind of result from the karma, from their action. So those two guards are actually the two boys that are in the womb of Diti, and they are cursed to be born as asuras. But Vishnu had said, when you're born, I myself will come and liberate you at the end of your lives there. And you'll have such one-pointed concentration on me that is actually intensified by the energy of anger that you'll never forget me. So that's the demonic way, is these kind of demon characters are filled with these enmity, greed, this idea of separation between me and you, us and them, the idea of mine and desiring more for the self. So they're very deluded by this idea of ego. They're basically personifications of ego. But also the one-pointed focus can be a plus point. They're very sort of myopic, they don't always see the bigger picture. They're very focused, and that can be a double-edged sword. It can have a plus in it too. And also the energy of anger, I notice in my life too, sometimes I realize that anger is a motivator. Sometimes it can motivate me to do things which are positive. Eventually, I think we want to get rid of that anger part and just do the things. But sometimes anger can be their energizing force. So when we're in our more demonic mode, that's one of the things we can use to help us. So anger is going to help them have a single point focus on Vishnu and end up ultimately liberated. So that's the backstory. So they're in her womb. Well, eventually she just can't hold back the birth any longer. And if the time for the birth is there's all these inauspicious omens on the earth. There's earthquakes. There are oceans rising up, cyclones. There's all kinds of terrible things happen. Donkeys run here and there, graying. It's sort of a terrible scene. And then these two sons are born. Well, they grow up. One is named Hiranyaksha and one is Hiranyakashipu. And Hiranyakashipu is the elder, and Hiranyaksha is the younger one. And they are very powerful demonic beings, and they decide that they want to subjugate everything. The younger one is really warlike, and he's just always trying to fight everyone and prove himself as the stronger. So he's just looking for people to fight with all the time. We're the adversaries. And the older one becomes incredibly a powerful ruler on the earth. They both do a lot of austerity with their single-minded yogic focus. They do so much austerity that they get great boons. And And the whole earth is sort of shaken and disrupted by their demonic presence. And she begins to kind of fall down into the cosmic ocean at the time of, so it's the time of the dissolution, the periodic dissolution of the universe. So the earth is sort of falling into this cosmic ocean and sinking down into the cosmic ocean. And the gods are, the demons are unseating the gods, taking their place in the heavens. They know that the gods are fed and stay alive through the sacrifice and the offerings of beings on this planet. So whatever we, in like a fire sacrifice or even in mental like rememberings of the gods, in the same way that we may think of feeding our ancestors that have passed before with both like food offerings, but also remembrances, offerings of flowers, things like that to kind of keep their spirits alive. In the Hindu world, when we make those offerings towards the gods like Indra, Varuna, the different gods of the Vedic gods, we keep them alive. And it also helps to keep the cycles on Earth going in a good way. Like we propitiate the wind god, for example, the sun god, the god of the ocean with different offerings, and it keeps life full in balance and brings good harvest, brings fertility, all of those things that those gods represent. So the demons go around terrorizing people who are making offerings so that the gods become weakened. And then the demons are able to take over their places in heaven and have dominion over the world. And they steal all the offerings and become more and more powerful and gain everything for themselves. So that's their MO. So this is all going on. Earth is sinking. Everything's looking bad. And Hiranyaksha, the younger one, is roaming around looking for adversaries. So he goes up to the heavenly realm, which is ruled by Indra, the king of heaven, and all the gods live up there. And he says, "Who wants to fight me?" And he's going around with his mace, stomping around. "Who wants to fight me?" And all the gods are like, "No, not me. I don't think so." And they're hiding in different corners. And he said, "I see you all hiding. Indra, king of heaven, come fight me." And Indra's like, "No, thanks. I think we're good." So he says, "Okay, now I'm going to go down to the ocean." So he goes down to the deepest part of the ocean and he goes under the ocean and he's there for a long time, sort of making huge waves come and swimming through and making all the aquatic creatures run and hide, swim away and hide. And he finally gets down to the very bottom of the ocean where Varuna, the king of the ocean, lives, and that's his realm. And he says to Varuna, "Varuna, nobody in heaven would fight me. Why don't you fight me? Come on." And Varuna says, "We're all really old. We don't really do that anymore." Varuna's really angry, but because he is able to control his anger, he's like with lots of self-control. He says, "Okay, I'm not gonna let this guy antagonize me. I'm not gonna let him get my goat. I'm gonna turn him in the way where he needs to go." So he says, "Okay, we're kind of old, we don't really fight. I think you should go find Vishnu because he's the only one that will fight you. And not only that, he's going to vanquish you. So you better go find that guy." And so Hiranyaksha says, "Okay, I don't think he's going to vanquish me. I'm going to go get him." So he goes to Narada, who's the celestial bard who sort of roams around the universe gossiping about all sorts of things and causing trouble. And he is part of Vishnu's court. And he says, "Where is Vishnu? Where can I find him?" And so he tells him where Vishnu can be found. He goes to find Vishnu. At the same time, all the gods have appealed to Vishnu because the earth is sinking into the ocean and it looks like it's time for cosmic dissolution and everybody's really scared about dissolving into the cosmic nothingness. So they said, "Please help us." And Vishnu said, "Okay, it's time for me to step in as one of my avatars." So he turns himself into a tiny boar with big tusks. And right in front of Brahma, Brahma watches as this boar starts to grow and grow and grow and become huge. This huge, magnificent, resplendent boar with these big pearly tusks. And that boar dives down into the ocean. Well, just at that same time in the ocean, there is Hiranyaksha with his mace, like looking for Vishnu, looking for a fight. So the boar goes down and on his tusks, this is how we show it in dance, he goes down and he grabs the earth on his tusks and actually lifts her up out of the ocean. And there's these wonderful descriptions of how all the aquatic creatures are sort of falling off the side, and there's sort of ocean foam and all this like beautiful rainbows sort of shimmering as the earth is lifted up very majestically out of the ocean on the tusks of this beautiful boar. And the boar is, of course, Vishnu, and Vishnu is always described in this really beautiful way because he is this symbol of life itself and the continuity of life. And so he's always very handsome in whatever form he is. So he's often described when he's in the form of Ram or Krishna as being dark as a rain cloud, like that really beautiful gray, purpley blue of a cloud that's just about to burst with rain, and that's so life-giving. So this boar is described also as being that color and being like sleek and beautiful, and everyone is just awed by this creature, and all the beings on the earth are kind of like running for shelter from this huge being, and all of the sages and enlightened beings are like running for shelter to this being and sort of hiding in amongst his sort of prickly little boar hairs. So you can imagine this great scene. So he lifts the earth and then sets the earth down and gives it sort of his magical power to sort of float on the water for a minute while he deals with the demon. And then the demon and the boar have this epic battle, and eventually the demon is vanquished. So Hiranyaksha is killed, and that is the purpose of the boar avatar. But of course, we still have the elder brother, Hiranyakashipu. And, when Diti goes to her husband after they've conceived and she says, don't let these sons be killed. And he says, no, eventually they'll be killed by Vishnu. It's going to be bad, but it'll be okay in the end. And also you're going to have a grandson who is born into the demon race, but who is praised by all beings as a great devotee. So, maybe your sons will be bad, but the next generation is going to make up for it. But with this son, and his name is Prahlad, and he's actually the son of Hiranyakashipu. So after the death of Hiranyaksha, Diti, his mother, and his wife, and all their kids, and his brother Hiranyakashipu are really, really sad. And Hiranyakashipu becomes even more determined that he just starts to really hate Vishnu. His whole focus turns to Vishnu with so much anger and hatred that he makes it just his life's purpose to get this guy. And so he starts to do everything he can to make that happen. And he says, look, all of you demon minions of mine, I need you to go to all the four corners of the earth, and everywhere that you see anybody doing anything good, because all good things support Vishnu. That's like doing his work. I want you to just stop it. So they go and they burn down villages, and they terrorize, massively terrorize all the four directions in the whole earth, and it's massively oppressed. In the meantime, he goes and starts meditating so he can get more power. And he meditates so intensively that by the time the fire of his tapas, so they say when a powerful being meditates really intensively, it creates all this heat. So this smoke from his intensive meditation sort of blasts out from his head and starts scorching the whole universe, like from where he is, radiating out. So the whole world is being scorched simultaneously. Armies of demon minions are destroying everything in all directions, and it's getting really bad. And the devas, of course, resort to Brahma again and say, help, what's going on? We need your help. And so Brahma says, okay, let me go see what's going on. So he goes to the place where he's meditating, and he's like, where is he? He can't even find Hiranyakashipu. And he's like, what's that little hill over there? And he looks, and the guy has been meditating so intensively for so long that he's actually had anthills build up completely over him, and then a bamboo forest and grass actually grow up over him. So he just looks like a little mound, and the ants have completely eaten away his flesh. He's just under this anthill, just in such deep samadhi that he's just like totally invisible. Well, finally Brahma realizes, oh, I think that he's in that anthill over here. And he says, Hiranyakashipu, I'm here. I've answered you can come out now. I'm here. What do you want?
So he emerges, this emaciated being, and bows before Brahma and says, okay, thank you for coming. I've got a whole list here of things that I want. And so he says, okay, I want to be such a powerful being that nothing that you have created can destroy me. And I don't want to be destroyed. And Brahma's the creator, right? So he's thinking that's pretty much everything. I won't want to be destroyed in the day. I won't be able to be destroyed at night. I don't want to be able to be destroyed on the earth or in the sky or by any weapon. Let's see, he tries to think of every contingency, day, night. Okay, inside or outside a dwelling. Okay, so you can't just be destroyed either of those places. So I was thinking, okay, if I covered everything, not by an animal, not by a human, not by a demon, not by a god. It's like, okay, I think I've got it all. That's the boon I want. I want to be super powerful and I can't be destroyed by all these things. Because I guess that's how the boons work. You have to think of everything before you ask it. You can't just say everything. You have to list them. I don't know why, but a lot of these stories hinge on that fact. So Brahma says, okay, your boon is granted. And Hiranyakashipu becomes so powerful. He goes up to heaven, kicks everybody out, takes over Indra's palace, which is amazing, has his wives and has his sons. And he's having his sons educated by Shukracharya, who's the preceptor of the demons. So the gods have a holy sage who sort of instructs them. He's like a counselor and teaches their children, and same thing with the demons. So Shukracharya is in charge, his two sons are in charge of educating the sons of Hiranyakashipu in the ways of sacred demonness. And they're sort of supposed to be teaching them how to be egoic and how to kind of very attached to this idea of mine and yours, and to kind of enhance the egoic nature of their being. But at the same time, they're also learning sort of wise ways to do that, because if you see, they are intense meditators, they are intense practitioners, these demons, and sort of divine beings, but they are demonic divine beings. So the kids are being educated, but little Prahlad, no matter how much they try to educate him into egotism, he's just by nature completely free. And he keeps coming. The father will call the children, okay, children, come sit on my lap. Tell me what you learned. And Prahlad will say, well, I learned that we're all not separate and we're all one, and we should love other beings and just try to do good. And the father's like, who's been teaching you this? He calls Shukracharya. What are you teaching this guy? He's like, I don't know where he's getting this stuff. This is not what I've been teaching him. So he sends them, go to a different teacher. So he sends them somewhere else to learn, then calls the children, okay, children, sit on my lap. What have you learned today? Well, I've learned that we should all do good deeds, that we should relinquish all material possessions, that we should just focus our mind on attaining salvation. What? Where have you learned this? And each time he's getting madder and madder. And little Prahlad is like, I don't know, I just came to me. That's just who I am. Well, finally he locks the son up and says, you're not, I don't want you to have any contact with anyone. And we just don't want you here as part of our family. So he locks him up. And then the father goes away on some business, and someone calls him, come play with the other children. So he comes out, and the other innocent young demon children, Prahlad starts instructing them and telling them look, well, here, come listen to me. I have these great ideas. I have all these things to share. And of course the children are very open and so easily influenced. And so he says, what do you guys know? And they say, well, we've been taught da-da-da-da-da. And he said, well, I think this. And they're like, yeah, well, that makes so much more sense to our hearts. Yes, it's true. It's true. So they all come back and say, guess what we learned today? And the dad gets really, really angry and calls Prahlad and said, what have you been doing? Not only are you spoiling yourself, but you're starting to spoil your whole generation. And Prahlad says, and the father says, look, why are you turning against me? You're talking, and he's also a devotee of Vishnu. So he's saying we should all look to Vishnu as the Lord of all, who's going to, bring us salvation. And the father says, look, Vishnu is our mortal enemy. He killed your uncle. Why are you turning against me? Why are you upholding this guy who's terrible? And Prahlad said, because he's the foundation of all, and he's actually the only one that we can ultimately lean and rest on. He is our ultimate support. And the father says, what? I'm your father. I'm your ultimate support. And look, I've vanquished all the entire world. Like, who better can protect you than me? And Prahlad said, I don't need the protection of my human father. I don't need the protection of a mortal separate being. The protection of that which created, that which pervades all, is my ultimate protection. And that's what I'm going to surrender myself to, is that which pervades, that, because that's the name, Narayan, the name for Vishnu, means that which pervades all things. So when he's saying Vishnu, he's talking about the divine nature that is all things. And so this idea of just like surrendering the self to the universe, to all that is, not being attached to, I need, all these things that sort of satisfy my root chakra needs for, I mean, obviously we need to survive, but the whole idea of a yogi is to be like the birds, right? To rest in the divine nature and trust it to take care of us. And so that's what Prahlad is really preaching there. He's talking about surrendering and trusting that the universe will always provide, and that I can be totally free, not need to greedily grab and try to make things happen, orchestrate things, manipulate things, control things, try to control you so I can get what I need, and have this sense of separation that comes from this egoic mentality. So the father that's totally antithetical to all that he stands for. And he says, look, if your God Vishnu is everywhere, pervading all things, then, well, look at this pillar of the palace. And they happen to be standing there in the evening out on the veranda. And there's the palace pillar there. And he says, look at this pillar in the palace. Like, if your Vishnu is everywhere, is he in this pillar? And he goes and he kicks it with all his might. Okay. And suddenly they hear this crash, like the universe is breaking. And all of the demon attendants and all of the courtiers are just shocked, and they run and hide. And even Hiranyakashipu is a little bit like taken aback. Whoa, what was that sound? Suddenly out of the pillar, it just like bursts open. And this creature emerges, and he's half man and half lion. So he has like the head of a lion and the body of a man. Well, actually, the bottom half is a man. The top half is a lion. He has doesn't have any weapons, but he's huge claws. And his head is just ferocious with fangs. And he just jumps out of this pillar. And Hiranyakashipu is like, whoa. I have never had to face an adversary like this. So he says, okay, I'm ready. He gets out his weapon and he charges at this being. And the being just takes him like a cat playing with a mouse and just grabs him and just tosses him up in the air, gets him in his claws, puts him on his lap, and just tears open his stomach, pulls out his entrails, and wears them as a garland. And that is the end of Hiranyakashipu. And that being is the avatar of Vishnu, Narasimha. Nara means a human, our man, and Singha is the lion. So he's the man lion. And he made this avatar because of the boon that Hiranyakashipu had asked for. So it was evening, so it wasn't day or night. It was at the very threshold of the palace between the inside and outside. He was neither a man nor a beast nor anything created by Brahma, totally new kind of being. It wasn't on the earth. It wasn't in the sky. It was on his lap. And he didn't use any weapons. He used his claws. So he kind of circumambulated that boon and was able to destroy the demon. And then also at the same time, he gave a divine vision to Prahlad, who was his devotee. And that for all the devotees of Vishnu, that's their ultimate goal, is to really like behold the divine form of Vishnu. So as Narasimha, he showed himself to Prahlad, who just prostrated at his feet. And I said, what can I do for you, Prahlad? You're such a great devotee of mine. What can I do for you? He said, don't you know me, Vishnu? I have no desires except just beholding your form is my only desire. I have nothing to ask for. And so he said, well, I want you should take over the reins of this kingdom. You be the next king of the demons and rule in a good way, do good and, right the wrongs that your father has created on the earth and rule the demons with righteousness. So Prahlad ended up becoming the next king and carrying on the demon race. And he also said, and then Prahlad said, well, I guess I do have one thing to ask my father. He did so many bad things, but, please forgive him. And Vishnu said, no problem. He's coming with me. So he left his demonic form and went with Vishnu. And so those are the stories of the two demon brothers, Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu, who were the instigators for two of the avatars of Vishnu, the boar avatar and the man lion. And I think next time I'll talk about the rest of the avatars. We've got Parashuram. We've talked about Ram and Krishna, so I'm going to skip them because they each have their own whole, epic poems and the Ramayana and the Mahabharata, plus lots of Puranic literature. So I'm going to spend different days, at least one on each of them. But next time we'll talk about Parashurama, because we talked about Vamana, the dwarf, who comes after. So the order is the fish, the turtle, the boar, the man lion, and then so it's sort of going up the evolutionary chain, man lion, and then Vamana, the dwarf. Then Parashuram, who is Rama with an axe. So there's two avatars named Ram. One is the Rama with an axe, and then Ram is Ramachandra, who's the hero of the Ramayana. Then after that, and in this version of Dasavatar, the 10 incarnations, then comes Krishna or Balaram, Krishna's brother, who was the plow herd. So I'll talk about Krishna, but I can also talk about Balaram, because in this version of the 10 incarnations, he's actually the incarnation, because for those who worship Krishna as the supreme deity, then Krishna can't be an avatar. So they say that his brother is actually the avatar. And it's interesting, he's an agricultural avatar, because he was the first to bring the plow and sort of tame the Yamuna River and bring irrigation to the fertile farmland around the Yamuna River in India, in that basin there. So then after him comes Buddha in this version, and Kalki, the one yet to come. So we'll talk about Parashuram and Buddha as an avatar, not Buddha of Buddhism, but Buddha as an avatar, and kind of how the Hindus have enfolded him and see that incarnation in relation to Hinduism. And then Kalki, the one yet to come.
Do they say when Kalki's on his way?
I guess there's all kinds of different, people have done like calculations about when this yuga is supposed to end. I think there's like some debate there.
Yeah. So it's in the next yuga. It's not in the Kalki.
Well, it's at the end of this yuga. It's when this at the next dissolution of the universe, he's going to come. Mm-hmm. So whenever that comes. Exactly. Yeah. Any questions? Okay.
I was just thinking of when the grandson was, like, I just want to let the universe provide for me. It was reminding me of St. Francis, how his father was like, I'm the father, and how he cast him out.
Yeah, interesting.
Really similar.
Yeah, and in the sense that the father can provide these material things, because St. Francis's father was really wealthy, right? Yeah. But
he did the same thing.
Yeah.
He was like, I'm the one.
Right. Don't just rely on me. Look what I've done for you. Yeah. And I brought you into this world. And you owe me one.
Right. Yeah.
That's
St. Francis was like, he took all his clothes off.
Yeah.
Here, have your clothes, Dad.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Dad. So moving on to the next one.
You're perfect. Yeah, it's too.
The son reminded me of the first 3 steps in 12 step work.
Oh, interesting.
Admitted we were powerless, and that our lives have become unmanageable. came to believe that a power greater than ourselves was versus sanity, made a decision to turn our lives not to the care of God. That's what interesting.
There you go. It's all connected. AA and Hinduism, who knew? You only find out about that shit here. It's just here. Yay, Anandi. Little May Day song that came through on a May Day. May Day belting, put the pole up, dance around it. Midpoint between spring and summertime again. May Day belting, make the bonfire, dance around it. Midpoint between spring and summertime again. And the flowers bloom, and the green returns, and the light is bright, and all is well. May Day belting, jump over the bonfire, midpoint between spring and summertime again. Happy belting, everybody. Thank you, thank you. We're gonna sing our love song. Now there is love on earth, and it has begun with me. Now there is love on earth, the love that was meant to be. With all our relations, loved ones all are we. Now I walk with my family in perfect harmony. Love has begun with me, and this is the moment now. With every breath I take, let this be my joyous vow. To take each moment and live each moment in love eternally. Now there is love on earth, and it has begun with me. We are the light, the love, and the presence. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well. I love what the diff, really. There's food upstairs if you want food. Thank you for joining us today. I think we have Valerie next week. I don't know what she's talking about.
Okay.
Moving into May, we got through the winter. Woohoo! Yay! Hi, Chen. Good to see you.